blessing to be with you today as we celebrate this Mass, and we remember the martyrs, St. Charles Lwanga and companions, and have my classmate and friend also, Father Chris, here with us today. So today we read from Acts of the Apostles, and here in this reading, Festus is consulting with King Agrippa about Paul. And this is sort of like what happened with Jesus, and that these people that were really living immoral lives and broken lives end up having to make decisions about the fate of the holiest of us, right? Because it is sort of like with Christ, right? And led before these authorities, Herod Agrippa II was the last ruler of the Herodian dynasty, and his consort, right, that I believe is mentioned in this reading, was actually his blood sister. It was actually his sister, and he had an affair with her for many, many years. And here he is judging Paul, judging Paul as what we do with this person, Paul, who is on fire about whoever Jesus is. And and what we see from the reading is that both Festus and King Agrippa actually believe Paul to be innocent of having done anything wrong. He had not done anything wrong. A difference of religious opinion, certainly difference of religion between him and his accusers from the Jewish synagogue. But he had done nothing wrong. And what I found in this as I prayed with this reading, and I prayed with this, and I asked myself, what do I take from this kind of matter-of-fact reading? Was that we see that Paul made every reasonable effort to avoid sentencing and punishment for being a Christian. He didn't go to the Sanhedrin and say, "Yes, I'm all about Jesus Christ. Do what you want," He was thinking about the lives and the fates of those who also followed Jesus, who the rest of the Christian community. And he did not seek out martyrdom. What he did was he witnessed to Jesus, and he did his best to protect his life that God had given him. Now, it's the commandment to not kill includes that we honor ourselves. I often think about that these days in this time when suicide has become more socially acceptable. I mean, people, we don't have the same stigma with that we are called to protect our own life, not simply that of others. And so I think this is an act of prudence on Paul's part. He is trying to be prudent. He's trying to witness. He's witnessing to Christ. He's not holding back the message of Christ, but he's thinking about the rest of the community. And I think that that's something we're called to learn from, to do, to ask ourselves to imitate this. Today, again, we celebrate these Ugandan martyrs, Charles Lwanga and companions. They lived in the mid-1800s, and I'm just going to kind of read through some of my notes through this because they're kind of goes on a bit. That their story is truly fascinating. It's truly a fascinating story, and it's a difficult story. It really is. It's a difficult story to read. Charles Lwanga and the other martyrs were born around 1860. They lived around 1860, not terribly long ago, in what is now Uganda, and they served in the court at the time of the country's ruler, who was King Mwanga II of Buganda. It was called Buganda. And King Mwanga, the ruler, was a violent, harsh person. And he also, I'm just going to tell you, he was someone who sexually abused many people in the court. He was sexually abused many people, including the men. And this happened a lot, and he also and he experienced a lot of tensions with Christian missionaries because of their condemnation of his behavior. And when this King Mwanga killed a Protestant missionary and their companions, the king's chief steward confronted him over this behavior. This man's name was Joseph, the chief steward, and the king had the chief steward, Joseph, killed at that time. And then Charles Lwanga was asked to take over Joseph's responsibilities. Charles Lwanga was on the way toward Christian conversion and he wanted to be baptized. He wasn't baptized yet, but God's grace was already working in his life. And Charles discerned that it was his responsibility to protect the boys in the king's court from this person. When King Mwanga found that his servants were being taught the Christian religion, he became absolutely infuriated. And he found that this person named Dennis had been catechizing them and teaching them Christianity, and as you can probably imagine, he killed Dennis himself. And then he separated these Christians, which were led by Charles Lwanga, from the rest of the court and asked them to renounce their faith. Charles Lwanga and his companions declared that they would not renounce their Christian faith. And so then they were condemned to death at this time. Charles Lwanga, and I believe at this point he was already baptized, and he baptized those who were still catechumens. They were sent on a 37-mile hike to a place where they would be executed. 37 miles. And they showed great joy and courage on their way, even though, again, this is 37 miles, and they had to walk. And as I told you, this is a tough story. When they reached their place of execution, essentially they were all burned to death. They were all burned alive. And the youngest were killed first. 13 Catholics died that day, along with 11 Protestants. St. Charles and his companions were canonized on October 18, 1964 by Pope Paul VI. And they are patrons of Catholic action, of African Catholic action, of converts and torture victims. And so, I share this story with you because it is so inspiring, it's so powerful. And I ask that Charles Lwanga and his companions in heaven will pray for us, and pray for us especially in this time when we have lost sight so much, I think, of God and of natural order and how we are called to love others. And they are some of the greatest martyrs in Africa that I've ever heard of. Charles Lwanga.